this podcast, it's more males, but there is an increasing number of females. But it's often discussions like this which perhaps, I don't know, bring it to an awareness of minds that haven't heard it before. So it's discussing difficult topics like miscarriage and motherhood and what your story. But I've heard you talk about, again, a bit like alcohol, the reason for doing it, and it's to help people out, and it's to, lots of people, like so many people going through the same thing. So I was wondering if you could take it to the start. The reason it's a good seg is because of the support you had in breakfast and the emotional farewell, and everyone was kind of on this journey together. But could you take us back to the start of your journey to being a mum?
Sure. So I think it was after breakfast on a Friday afternoon. God, it's not night, is it? It would have been the middle of the day. And I was feeling really, really sorry for myself because I think I'd been on another date. I mean, I actually met some great people, and I don't think I've ever met a horrible person that I've been on a date with. But, I was just really...
Were you using the apps?
I tried for a week. It was terrifying.
I missed that window.
Yes, terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I mean, people can, start getting scary just on text, can't they? Yeah.
Sorry.
So, no, I deleted that pretty quickly.
What a time to go in for an app question, eh? Good on you.
Yeah. No, but friends would set you up, and friends would always set you up with people they wanted to date, but they couldn't because they were married. I don't think people actually got you. Or mums, bless them, would set you up with a really nice boy. But
was it one of those ones like you were talking about before where when people say, this will be really good for you, you go, ooh, no, I'm okay there. I'm not interested in that. Is that kind of how that was? Yeah,
actually, there was I feel really sorry for this person. I hope he's not listening. But Mum wanted me to go on a date with one of her good friend's daughter's really good friend because, apparently he was such a good guy. And because they were doing it, and I was so annoyed by this stage, I said to her, I told you, Mum, don't set me up on dates. You don't know who I like. And she continued doing it, so I just didn't. I ignored his calls, and Mum was like, you're giving me a really bad name. My friend keeps calling me saying your daughter's, really mean. I'm like, this. I told you, this is to teach you.
Yeah.
Stop doing it. So I never met that person, but I met some lovely people, but just I was depressed that I would never meet the person I actually wanted to be with. And my friend Josh came over when I was in this mood, and he was like, what's wrong with you? You seem really unfun today. And I just said, I'm 40 or nearing 40. I think I was 39. I'm trying to meet somebody because actually I just want a baby and I don't even care about meeting somebody or having a relationship. But I feel like you have to, and I just feel stuck. And I think any woman who gets to that age who does want a family, who is single, will go through that. I mean, it's a really horrible place to be in because you're sort of trying to force something. And Josh went away and thought about that. And the next time he came over, he was like, I've always wanted to be a young dad and I can help you out if you wanted to just have a baby. And so we went on a weird date, which was kind of like a precursor to... Anyway, let's not go into detail.
I was going to ask a supplementary. But that must be an interesting dynamic, knowing the end destination of where that interaction is going to lead up to.
Yes.
It's sort of like having a challenging topic to talk about on a podcast.
You don't know for sure. You just gotta sort of hold the course.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was weird, but we're both quite odd. And we both kind of revel in uncomfortable situations. So, we stuck with it. I think we went and had some kava. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you into the kava?
I mean, I'm not into it as such, but I will have some.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Down at the place at Newmarket?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, no, in
you stay out of this, bro. You stay out.
Stop derailing, man. Third derail.
At Victoria Park.
Yeah, I've never been there, but I follow them on Insta. I'd like to go down there.
You should go down. Yeah, it's great.
I will do.
Yeah.
You stay out of this, bro. Just let us do this.
They won't tell their story.
All right. Last derailing.
So we went there, then we went to the club that's on the rooftop there. They were having a salsa class type thing, so we did some salsa. And then we went back home and,
No.
What are you saying, Hayley? The magic happened.
Anyway,
Yeah,
it was
very good.
magic. And actually, I think it was magic because I didn't hear from Josh for like 3 months after that. And I don't know, he obviously was like, what am I doing? I think maybe he scared himself. And I didn't really think about it either because, you know, you're not going to get pregnant after one go. And I got pregnant after one go. I hadn't even timed it. I mean, this wasn't really thought out.
Is that Carver, eh?
I've had 4 kids that way.
Exactly. Whoops. Oh. Yeah, and so I think when I found out, my mum and I were planning to go to Egypt. And she came over for a planning session, and I was like, I've got a little something to tell you. It might put a bit of a spanner in the works. I'm pregnant. And she just went, and her eyes lit up, and she was so happy for me. And she goes, does that mean we might not have to? She really wanted to go to Egypt. We might not go. So she was disappointed, but she was so happy. And then she's like, who's the father? And I'm like, you don't know. Don't worry about it. So that was confusing for her too, because no one had any idea what was going on here. And so then I was trying to call Josh. He was being very evasive. And I'm like,
as he can be.
Yeah. And so finally, I think just before we went to Egypt, I was about 3 months pregnant, and I was like, I really need to talk to you. You know, I couldn't get more obvious than that. And he was with his on the roof with his partner, and he was like, oh man, I think I'm a dad. I know. Oh God. So anyway, we met. I was like, let's make this super easy. We'll meet in the park, Victoria Park, because we both lived close to that. And we sat on the grass, and I just told him. And he was like, you could tell he was really happy. He was like, this is cool. And I was like, I don't expect anything from you, but I would love you to be in the child's life because, you know, it's about the child now. And he was cool. He's like, yeah, cool. Don't expect me to be at every birthday party though, eh? And I was like, okay, fine. Whatever you want. That is cool. And so from there, I had it in my head that we needed to be best friends. Because if we were going to co-parent, and I know that it's really good for kids to have both their parents in their lives, that, you know, if we on was the most important thing, and not to have a relationship because that would muck it up. And so we started, you know, going to the beach, and we started hanging out and going out for dinner and meeting each other's friends and family, and we both started quite liking each other, and it was quite an awkward. It's quite awkward because we were both sort of trying to not let anything happen, but it just sort of happened. So it kind of happened naturally in a weird way, but backwards. And then I went down to Taupo, and we were dating at this stage, and I went to meet his dad and his sister, and his dad, I think his whole family had been giving him a lot of shit about, you've got to make this happen, you know, you've got to step up and be the man, and he's like, he's like us. Leave me alone. Yeah. Don't tell me to do anything. And I was too. I'm like, well, back off. But they were like, straight away, so you guys have decided to do this. And we were with like, oh my God. Maybe. Who knows? We'll see where it goes. And then lockdown happened as we were driving back from Taupo. You're hearing it on the news, you know, that COVID had entered the country and we were going to head into a lockdown. And I was living with my parents in Warkworth at the time. And we had to make these big decisions, like where were we going to have lockdown and what was my brother and his fiance going to do. And we decided that Josh probably would just spend lockdown, you know, in his flat. And I rang him on the morning that the country was going to shut down, and I said, I'm really sad. I've been really enjoying getting to know you, and how would you feel about coming up and spending lockdown with my parents, who he'd never met my dad. And he's brave. He's a brave boy. And he was like, cool, sure, whatever you want. And so I went and picked him up, and came in the back door of the barn, and the first thing that Mum did was like, take all your clothes off and get in the shower. And Josh is like, what? Because he's from quite a he was brought up Christian, so this would never happen at his house. And she's like, "Get in the shower, both of you," and she put our clothes in the washing machine. And then, only then, after he'd had a shower with with his daughter, did he meet my dad.
Wow. In his house.
In his house.
Wow.
Yes. So that was interesting. And he fit in so well. I mean, I think he was quite surprised at how cool my parents are. They're pretty laid back. My dad's just really honourable and just likes to work, and he's so open-minded, and he's just calm and lovely. And my mum is like quite like Josh, and they were like two kids. Like, I'd wake up and I'd hear them both shooting flies with their salt guns in the morning, and we had a great time. Lockdown was brilliant. And then obviously during lockdown we sort of found out that things weren't going so well with Frankie. So it was brilliant and beautiful, and Josh and I were falling in love, but also it was sort of tinged with this sort of fear and uncertainty, and then ultimately, terrible sadness over losing Frankie, who we were both so excited about at this stage. And it was awful, but it was just such an amazing way to see what kind of man Josh was. And he just really looked after me. He was so nice. In fact, actually, a few months down the track, I had to say, "You've got to stop being so nice to me," because, you could tell that he was really trying to look after me, which was amazing. But and so we lost Frankie, and it was heartbreaking, and it was the worst thing that you can go through. It's not the worst, but it's one of the terrible things that can happen to you in life. And I remember when he had died and I was still pregnant, and Josh and I were both very quiet, but we could both tell it was something else. And so I sort of said to him, I was like, "I'm actually one of the pieces of sadness in this, is that, is this the end of us now? Because, I think I've fallen in love with you, and I feel like you may as well go now, if that's what if that's what you're thinking." And he said the same thing, and he said, one of the reasons I'm really sad is that I want us to stay together. And so that was the beautiful thing that came out of that, was we realised that we loved each other. And then, afterwards, a few months afterwards, we're like, "Do we?" Oh my God. But yeah,
the whole country was on that ride with you. It was tough. My wife is a big fan of yours, and I remember when that message came that you'd miscarried, like the sort of announcement or however it was, like it hurt a lot of people. Like, they were there with you in it. Did you get just this overwhelming feeling of support from people?
Yes, and I think that speaks to how much of a family breakfast and its audience, and how sort of a part of New Zealand that you become, is that people were so happy for me. And I made the announcement on breakfast, and people were, it was almost like everyone was my family, people, and it made me feel so supported and so cared for. Weird thing to say, but what an amazing experience to get to go through, in a way, to be able to experience that love from a country. It was quite overwhelming in a beautiful way. I just I was really, really thankful to have all of those people. And then every single person that came to me with a story. The mum or the auntie or the sister or their partner or them had lost a baby, or had miscarriage or stillbirth or whatever it was. It's everywhere, and we don't talk about it. And I know that if I had thought that that was a possibility, I would have been easier. It's almost like they trick you into getting pregnant, because it's quite hard. Once you're pregnant, then it's scary, which you'll probably know. Yeah, so and every story and every person that came and shared their experience with me helped. And so I sort of thought that maybe I could start sharing my story publicly, and that might help people to realise that they're not so alone, that it's not just them, it didn't happen to them, they're not bad, just something that happens. Yeah.
I can't imagine the difficulty between losing a child and then the scary decision to start trying again. So you're obviously going through this gauntlet of emotions and then telling people and then you're getting support and then you decide that you're going back in again.
Yes. Definitely terrifying. So after Frankie, this is a story. This is quite funny. Because Josh is a big golfer, and so we lived on a farm. Mum and Dad live on a farm, and so he'd spent a lot of lockdown hitting golf balls into one of the paddocks and going to pick them up. And during all the doctor's visits, I hit a couple of golf balls. I wasn't good around my belly, and one of them had shanked off to the side somewhere, and we went down to pick up the balls, and there was an injured hawk. I'd obviously hit this hawk in the head somehow, and Josh, being Māori, was like, oh my God, this is a terrible sign. I'm pretty sure that this is a bad omen. But it wasn't Frankie. I sort of thought that hawk was actually me, because I got sort of destroyed after Frankie, like my confidence. I think I had PTSD. I was kind of like flying high, and then I was cut down, and I had bad things can happen. And it took a long time, and so we were a new relationship. I'd gone back to work. We were trying again to have a baby, and it wasn't happening this time because I thought it was going to be easy because it happened the first time with Frankie, and it took ages. And so then it's never going to happen, and I'm too old, and it was very hard. And then getting pregnant, and then the terror actually hits. But the cool thing is it felt differently straight from the beginning. I felt lighter. When I first got pregnant with Frankie, it felt really heavy and like important and something, this was a really meaningful pregnancy. This one was just light and happy, and that's what Raven's like, so that's pretty cool. But it's absolutely terrifying. Before each scan, your body tenses up and your shoulders up around your ears, and then you sort of walk out and everything's okay, and you're like, oh. I remember our 20-week scan, and the lady was like, oh, his head's on the big side, and Josh and I were just like, no. Yeah. But she was just chatting,
Yeah.
It was just slightly, on the big side, the 90th percentile or something. Like, oh my God, don't say that. But luckily our doctor said it was the most boring scan he'd ever had.
That's what you want to hear.
Exactly.
So again, the country is with you on this wave once they find out you're pregnant, and then having Raven. Having your first child is emotional, or having a child is an incredibly emotional experience, but with what you'd been through, that must have was it a special moment?
Yeah, I'm trying to even remember what was it like. I had a C-section with Raven. I thought it was going to be exactly the same, but then he got stuck, and so we had a C-section. So it was different. So that was quite good in a way, and you're high on morphine too. So it was kind of like you're in another world, and it was amazing and magical, but it was scary too at the same time. There's a tiny human that you have to keep alive. So it didn't feel like, it wasn't like Frankie had coloured it. Like I'd wrapped Frankie up almost by that stage. Like I'd done all my healing, and I'd done all my therapy, and I'd painted all the pictures that I wanted to about what it meant and what he'd given us. And so Raven was a new chapter. So that was cool. And because I didn't want Raven to be so special that I became overbearing.
Right.
Yeah. Like that wouldn't be good for him either. Then he'd have to live under the cloud of Frankie, and that's not fair. So yeah, it was just like a new chapter, and terrifying. Isn't it scary bringing your first newborn home?
It is.
My God.
It is.
Oh my God. And you think that's the rest of your life, like in this terrible fear, and it's so important, and you've got everything that you need. And I was constantly online ordering something else that I needed for a newborn, and you use everything once and you don't need any of it, do you?
No.
You don't need any of it.
Love.
Just if you're having a new baby, you don't need it. Like a cot is important, and some swaddles maybe. nappies. Yeah.
And how has it now? What are we? 14 months? Did we say?
Yeah, 14.
14
No,
months.
1 year and 2 months. 1 year and 2 months.
How's it changed you? How is this Hayley different? How's it changed your outlook on life?
So I thought that having a baby was going to turn me into an earth mother, and all of a sudden you become a mother. And the shocking thing was I was exactly who I was before Raven. I was still the same person, which was really weird to me. And also scary because it's like, how is that person going to bring up a child? But in a way, it took me right back to the old Hayley, the Hayley before she gave up drinking, who was sort of fun and relaxed and, a bit silly. I'd gone through that giving up drinking was so serious, and then, going, a candidate for the Greens was quite serious, and then breakfast, and I tried to take myself so seriously, and then even getting into sport, it's so serious. And I've it sort of released me from that. So he allowed me to sort of feel the joy and be silly and get down onto his level and just be that, really just, respect my inner child.
Yeah.
At what point did you decide that the book was the option to go down?
When I was pregnant with Raven, I got a call from HarperCollins and they were interested in the book. And I just thought, I'd always thought I might do a book, but I thought I'd write it and that, it would be kind of all of the, the dirty stories. But they had, a much better idea of a book that would tell the story and help people and be kind of a redemption story in a way, but also just to, as you say, the drinking story isn't extreme. It's pretty much New Zealand's story. So I kind of got to tell New Zealand's story, especially people of our generation, as mine, and sort of help people sort of relate to it or think about themselves or just know that they're not alone.
I feel like it was a hell of a seller. I've got no idea about the sale, but it was such a hard launch. It was everywhere, and people were raving about it, and you were all over the media. Like, did it do really well?
It did really well, and especially at first. But I think in New Zealand, really, really well is pretty, no one's going to get rich from writing a book in New Zealand. I've always thought this about snowboarding as well. America, man, it is the land of the milk and honey, isn't it? Yeah. But it did really well, and I think the publisher, HarperCollins, were pretty excited as well to have someone who was keyed into the media to be able to go and do all of those interviews and get the magazines interested. So, yeah, it was a great success.
Yeah, it is, and it's such a happy ending. Like I said, the country was celebrating with you, and the book seemed just to be the cherry on top. That I don't know, it seems from talking to you that life is good and life had been its struggles, but you seem like you're in a really good place now.
I'm in a really good place. I'm in a really good place of accepting. I mean, I've done all my sort of going off on spiritual journeys, and now I feel like I'm just sort of doing what they say, which is being in the moment. I had a weird spiritual experience.
Maddie said you were very woo-woo. He said you were the most woo-woo person that he's ever come across in the most beautiful way.
I'm super woo-woo, but I love it. Like, I think it's fun, so I don't take it too seriously. But I just love hearing any stories like that. But we were interviewing the owner of Dilmah Tea, and his name escapes me, but he, is the old guy who's drink Dilmah.
Steve, you do a good accent. Why don't you do Dilmah Tea guy?
Don't start, right?
Something Fernando is his name.
Yeah, okay, there you go. And then as he was leaving, he just looked at me and he said, "This is going to be your happiest year."
Yeah.
And Maddie and Jack, because it was Jack at the time, were like, "Oh, that's lovely." But I was like, "That's not lovely. That means that this is the peak." Yeah. That means that, from here on in, it's downhill. And when I thought back after Frankie, he was kind of right. Like, that was the year when things couldn't go wrong. When I didn't have a care or a worry or a heartbreak or anything to go through. And my career was peaking and I was doing breakfast. And I kind of, when I think back to that now, I get a bit angry at him because I think, A, that's unfair. B, I hope he wasn't bloody right. And C, I feel way better now than I did then, because I was searching then. I was trying to grab for something. I was trying to meet somebody. I wanted a family, and I was always trying to compete and do better. But now I'm happy where I am now. So he was wrong.
Yeah, for sure. Your best year is definitely ahead of you.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of getting towards the end. I know Shay's got a few bits and pieces.
Oh, I want to. Sorry, I do want to jump back into the baby loss a little bit, and it's again around our audience, because you mentioned that you received the stories from women that have been through it. There's the men on the other side of it as well, and if they're anything like me, you tiptoe around the situation. You don't fucking know how to react. You don't know what to say. You don't know what is the right or the wrong. And I know every circumstance is unique, but is there a 101 that you could, from your experience, give to men out there that are listening that maybe have got someone in their lives that is going through or been through baby loss, as to how they could approach that situation?
Yeah, man, that's huge. That's a whole nother podcast, because people forget about the man going through the situation, the dad, because not only are they supposedly meant to support the mum, because it's all about the mum and she's the one losing the baby, but they have to do that and deal with their own grief at the same time, because it's their baby too. Yeah, it's a really difficult one. A, be like Josh. B, have the same family as Josh. So basically what they did is they just wrapped me up in care and love, and they were okay. They didn't shy away from talking about it. They just really sort of dove in, I suppose, and allowed me to grieve, and sort of held me whilst I was going through that. And then they were helping Josh do that too. But the one thing that I would, if I could give advice to Josh, and he disagrees with this, but I feel like he could have expressed his own grief too, because I know it's there. And I think it's really, it's damaging if you hold that in. Cry it out. But yeah, just say what you want to say.
Yeah.
Don't worry about saying the wrong thing, because there is no wrong thing. You can't make it worse. We came home and we realised that Frankie was going to die, and I was on the floor under the table just, crying and whatever I was doing. And he just tapped me on the back and said, "Don't worry, we'll get it out and put a new one in." And
sorry.
I know, exactly.
Oh,
right?
shit.
And I laughed, and I'm like, that's a terrible thing to say. Thank you very much. Literally thank you. And Mum said, "Oh my God, I love you, Josh. You're insane." Yeah.
But is it be yourself, I guess, is kind of the overarching. And I've heard you say send the message, because you might not receive a reply, but send the message if you're on the other side, right?
Definitely send the message, because they're read and they're felt, and it's so nice. And don't expect anything back. Just be yourself and talk about it. The worst thing was walking into a room afterwards and people would go, and you could see that they didn't know what to say. That's worse.
Did you have to make the first move in those situations of acknowledging what had happened, or did you wait for that to happen?
It depends on how I felt, I think, at the time. Or if I sort of was quite open with it, then you could see they were shocked, but then it sort of really sort of just relaxed everybody and cut the tension. Yeah.
Go and read the book, because this is all in the book, right?
Yes.
Go read the book.